It was about a year ago when we first heard the name Juan Guaido, this so-called self-appointed leader of this shadow government, stood up by Washington, D.C. I had said at the time, and prior to that, that this was going to be the greatest geopolitical miscalculation in the Western Hemisphere in modern times. Here we are a year later, and that's true. What I haven't talked about is why. Why did DC get this so wrong? What did they miss? How could they have been so fundamentally incorrect about the lay of the land in Venezuela? It has to do with the direction of this channel. Not that we were directly responsible for it, but what I was trying to do at the time was attempt to educate my audience, people of North America, of the difference between left and right wing in South America and left and right wing in North America. I know many of you think there's no difference. There is a huge difference. The left wing in South America has absolutely no problem picking up a gun or even handing guns to women, children, whoever they need to get their point across. They would be 100% against any government involvement in the possession of them one way or the other. It's a laughable point to them. And time again, the quote-unquote right-wing paramilitaries, in especially Colombia, get their ass handed to them by the FARC and the ELN. Those are the two, what largely the mainstream media refers to as quote-unquote terrorist organizations, when really they're militias. They're what we would call a people's army, a militia, the quote-unquote farmers with pitchforks from the Patriot, so to speak. That's who these people are. They are devout Christians, family values. The vast majority are farmers, and would have nothing to do with what we would call the leftist agenda, progressive agenda in North America. You talk atheists just don't exist down there. It's not something. Abortion is still seen as aberrant by everybody, left and right wing alike. And in today's video, what I really wanted to share was there's an article out, and it's a fantastic one, that talks about Lula da Silva and Jair Bolsonaro. Those were the two guys running for president. Well, supposedly running for president in Brazil. The government in Brazil had Lula da Silva jailed so that he couldn't run, even though he was polling at 75%. And that's how Jair Bolsonaro, who got maybe 40% of the vote, ended up being president. I want to share something with you that confirms what I'm telling you, that the left in South America has a lot more in common with the everyday conservative North American than they do with any leftist up here, quote unquote, North American leftist. Now, real quick, this article from Sojourners: Is Brazil becoming an evangelical theocracy? The difference between these two guys on that subject is just one of method. They both believe Brazil needs to be a Christian country. Imagine one of our leaders saying that. Even the most right-wing of our leaders wouldn't say that. They both of these leaders, when asked, would say absolutely Brazil needs to be a Christian country. They just argue about the method, about whatever quote-unquote version of Christianity should be predominantly observed. The guy on the right, Jair Bolsonaro, has a lot more in common with the Joel Osteen, the Paula, is it White? The prosperity preachers, the super duper wealthy types. And he thinks that their version of Christianity should be the one that takes the lead. Lula's is a lot more classic. more akin to what you would maybe see from the Amish or the Mennonite and their lifestyle. One of austerity, one of piety, one of humility. All of the things that the prosperity preachers hate. This is the argument down there. It isn't an argument over Christian or over non-Christian. And let me show you what was said in this article that would absolutely blow you away. Here they talk about, the switching of the recognition of the embassy in Jerusalem over Tel Aviv. They use this term down there called neo-Pentecostal, which is their version of evangelical. And here it says, once in government, speaking of Jair Bolsonaro, he adds, neo-Pentecostal evangelicals and fundamentalist Catholics took on first and second level positions, especially in the areas of education, culture, human rights, and foreign policy, promoting a quote-unquote culture war, seeking to quote-unquote rewrite the narrative of Brazil's identity as a Christian nation. More than 60 million Brazilians declare themselves Protestant or evangelical out of a population of 210 million. Now, the writer here is a progressive. The writer is someone who is more akin to a secular atheist than a Christian. And so this is some type of a hit piece. But in the process of trying to do a hit piece on Jair Bolsonaro, he reveals what would have gone on under Lula da Silva. Neo-Pentecostal is a term used only in Brazil, explains journalist Fabio Martin, author of the book, quote-unquote, Ungodly, the Gospel of an Atheist, in which he tells of his upbringing in a fervently Pentecostal family. It's a term that doesn't represent a theological division, nor has ever been used by churches, but it is used by outsiders to define those churches adept at prosperity theology, more open to requests for money, and televangelism. Now, that's the Bolsonaro version. Bolsonaro's move to increase the presence and power of fundamentalist leader initially seemed similar to those of previous presidents such as Lula da Silva and especially Dilma Rousseff, but in fact went significantly further. Under Lula da Silva, now remember, Lula's the left-wing guy. Okay, this is the guy that you would think would be not Christian, would be not fundamentalist, right? Listen to what Lula da Silva and Dilma Rousseff did. Evangelical fundamentalists gained power in several areas under them, forcing significant setbacks, quote-unquote, in human rights, whatever, such as the cancellation of the anti-homophobia kit, anti-AIDS policy setbacks, and even a fundamentalist evangelical pastor, Marco Feliciano, was eventually appointed to the presidency of the Commission on Human Rights of the House of Representatives. It is also true that Bolsonaro has taken steps forward, promising and effectively delivering measures that violate human rights in a way never before, blah, 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 blah. See, this guy, the writer, is very anti-Christian. He doesn't like Christians. But in writing this article, he reveals that both the left and the right in South America are devout Christians. It's just a matter of who and how and methodology. I think a great example would be if they lived in the same era. Think of Billy Graham running in a presidential race against Joel Osteen. That would be the argument. That would be the difference. And that's very, very different than here in North America, where there's a very tiny vocal group of people trying to deny creation, trying to deny intelligent design, and trying to make all of us, monkey's uncles, so to speak. And that's one of the key differences. And that's, like I said, that's in Brazil. But this is the same story in Colombia, the same story in Argentina, and especially in Venezuela, where the Lula da Silva version of Christianity, of Christian social democracy, has taken root. And that was what really, really, really made the people in D.C. mad. This thing with the whole, they're starving, they're out of food, all this kind of crap. That was a long time in the works. And that it failed so badly is sending shockwaves through DC right now that they're not talking about. Because they thought for sure the current guy would be the one to be able to put the final nail in that coffin. And the coffin lid isn't even on, and the body's up and walking around. It's not even close. And this is what they don't understand. DC does not understand about the people of South America. No matter whether you're defined as left or defined as right down here, there are certain belief systems in North America that nobody's going to get on board with. Atheism, transgenderism, abortion, all of these things are just seen as completely narcissistic, aberrant, disgusting practices. And there was another part of that article I didn't read where the guy was bemoaning the poor Afro-tribalist religion that gets picked on so bad. Yeah, golly, the poor blood-drinking cannibals. Gee, I feel so bad for them. That's who he's talking about. Feeling bad for. So, you can make whatever argument you want, and you can try to conflate two things together if you want. Say that, well, all religion is all religion, and Christianity is the same as a blood-drinking cannibal. If you're that type, if you're of that mind, down here, you would be seen as almost mentally ill and in need of being committed if you were that dumb. So, I guess I will leave that there, and I'm sure that's probably going to spark some discussion, at least down in the comment section. Like, share, subscribe, and we will see you next time.